You use the word authenticity, and we use the word about going into conferences and networking and doing this, right? The number one currency that you're going to have in the next 10, 15, 20 years is going to be authenticity. This is going to be the number one skill. Why? Because you're not going to trust anything online. There's going to be tons of deep fakes, voices, video, you name it. So yes, maybe things will be on the blockchain and so forth, but people are going to thrive and they're going to desire human connection over anything digital. I promise you this is coming.
Let's impact some men today. I think we're gonna do a great job. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Modern Man Podcast, where we are on a mission to connect men in pursuit of their potential. I encourage you to join us as we embrace discomfort, cultivate community, and put wind in each other's sails. Now, before we jump into the episode, I first want to make sure that I ask for you to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and share this episode with somebody else who you know can get value from it. And to the men that are listening or watching, I encourage you to check out the Noble Knights Men's Community, where you can find a community of men that will provide you with the support, accountability, and the resources and mentorship you need to achieve your goals. Join us and become a part of a community of like-minded men on a mission to improve themselves and elevate their capacity for life. And I'm excited to get some wind in our sails today from my guest, who is a visionary entrepreneur who seamlessly integrates spirituality, artificial intelligence, and business innovation. As founder of pono.ai, he empowers entrepreneurs with AI-driven tools to streamline operations and amplify their impact. It is a pleasure to have on the episode out of Salt Lake City, Dalton Locke joining me today. Dalton, it is an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Man, thank you so much for having me. I mean, that intro was just, that was rock and roll right there.
I appreciate it. I've done it a few times, 150 something times, right? Hopefully can get it locked down at some.
Congrats.
But oh man, thank you, because coming to a journey, it's easy to say a number like 150, but a lot of folks don't necessarily see the work behind that. And I say the same for intros, right? I can say the titles, the accolades, the accomplishments, but that doesn't truly describe the story behind Dalton. So what I like to do at the beginning of every episode is step out of the way, let the audience, let the guests get acquainted, have you speak directly to folks. I used to ask, hey, what do you do? Who are you? But I got a little more creative, and let's say you walk into a room full of people you haven't met. They don't know who you are or what you do. The question is, how do you introduce yourself?
You know, if I'm in that room, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to walk forward. I'm going to put my hand out and say, I'm Dalton Locke. It's nice to meet you. I think that the reason I say that is the whole entire world right now, we are trying to label everybody and put everybody inside of a box so that we can define who they are. And you could say that I'm a business owner. I am a man. I am this. I am that. You know, I'm an adventurer. I'm a vision holder. All these different names, or you know, I run a show called The Spiritual Capitalist, or, you know, I'm a founder, but I don't really think that does a lot. I think what we need to do majority of the time is just to sit with somebody and get to hear their stories and who they are, because really it's not their title that defines them. It's their soul that defines them.
Oh man. We can go so deep in that, which I'm going to just jump right into the first question. What you just described perfectly, I think meets you at the bridge between capitalism and spirituality, something that you merge very well, right? It's not the title, it's the soul that defines you. Speak to the bridge of capitalism and spirituality that you've been able to merge so much, and how you've come to those crossroads, which something many entrepreneurs fail to merge. How have you come to blend the two so perfectly?
So I want to first say this. This is a journey. It is not something that I have figured out. It's not something that I exactly have the path or the processes on how to do this thing. Yes, we could talk about meditation. We could talk about prayer. We could talk about intention. We could talk about a lot of different things. But I think that in the end, our hearts know. Like when you're building a business, there's something that you know inside your heart that tells you, like, this is the thing to do. This is the impact that I want to make. And so the reason I talk a lot about spirituality and business is because a lot of times in business, all we're looking at is what are the numbers? Is there a niche market there? Are people going to buy my product? I don't really care if it's a good product or not. As long as I make that cash, as long as I make that money, I'm happy. And that way of doing things, in my personal opinion, because I have done both, is it's going to leave people burnt out. Because no matter what in business, there are challenges, there are things that you're going to face that are going to be very difficult. And in those times when you want to quit, just like yourself, running this podcast and running your business, are many times you want to quit. But if your purpose is not big enough, it doesn't come from something bigger than yourself. Some call it God, some call it spirit, some call it source, some call it Buddha and Allah, or whatever it is you want to define your higher power as. If it doesn't come from something greater inside your heart, the chances of you continuing to follow through when the shit really hits the fan is going to be very doubtful, because you're chasing money, you're not chasing purpose. If that makes sense to you, Ted.
Oh, it makes 100% sense to me. And I think it's a trap so many of us fall into. The follow-up to that was the question as to why you think so many of us fall into this trap. You alluded to it before, and my interpretation of your explanation was perhaps you chased money before you realized all that glitter wasn't gold, and there had to be a new approach. And unfortunately, so many of us, especially a lot of the men listening to this, and the 14 to 16% of women who listen to it at any given time as well. Thank you, ladies, for the support. We end up chasing those accolades, those titles. And sometimes the tragedy is we actually catch it and realize it doesn't hold the treasure we thought it would. I'm interested to know if this is a personal experience that has helped you see this light, or maybe someone near you. What gave you that insight into, man, all this glitter isn't gold, but what would you also identify makes us chase it so much?
So what I've seen the most in entrepreneurs, so my whole life, I've thought this way, not the spiritual side of things, but I've always thought, one day, if I have the thing, if I have the money, if I have the house, if I have whatever the perfect thing is, then at that point, I will be happy. I'll be happy. Like, I'll have the stuff, I'll have the accolades, I'll be smart, I'll be whatever the thing is, right? And we all have them. But the problem with that is that majority of that is a pile of our own personal traumas. And so when we have money, right? So let's say all of a sudden you have $1 million. The only thing it's going to do is it's going to amplify who you are. If you're a crappy individual, you're going to be a worse individual. If you're a giving individual, you're going to give more because you're going to have the resources to do that. And so as I started looking at a lot of entrepreneurs and, interviewed many of them and helped a lot of them over the years, one of the biggest things I noticed is that there's this process, especially in men, where we have to achieve to become something. We can't simply just be something. We have to have the thing to have the title to be the thing. And what I found is that instead of doing that, what if we just already embody that? What if we already become that thing? If you want to feel more successful, what does success really feel like? Because $1 million, $2 million, 10 million in the bank. And I know some of those people that are like, man, but that doesn't sound like real. That sounds like success to me. Like, that sounds like the thing. If I had that, I would be successful. I would be happy. I'd be those things. No, you wouldn't. You just have more problems. Mm-hmm. Because unless you do your own internal healing, unless you find out the place in your life where you have let go of that place of innocence, of where your soul disconnected from yourself, then you're never truly going to be happy. You're never truly going to have peace. And for me, the things that drive me the most in my life, and I had to get deep with this, and that was freedom and peace. So what does freedom mean? What does peace mean? What does that look like to me? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? What does that taste like? And I can tell you, there's nothing better than seeing the smile on my mom and dad's face. Or there's nothing better than sitting down with an old friend and having a beautiful conversation. There's nothing better than sitting on a couch. My partner will say, "We're rich." And I'll say, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "We have plenty of snacks." So we all define things differently. But I think the problem is so many people are chasing things, thinking that once they have the thing, they're going to be the thing. And that is just a broken system. And I see it a lot. So I wanted to really call that out to let people know, like, you don't have to have the thing to finally be happy, because this is a journey. This is a process. It's going to take time. And it's the journey that is the exciting thing. It's the learning, because once you have it, you're going to want to build something else. Once you create it, you're going to want to create something else. But you have to make sure that the reason you're creating it is from a level of true purpose, because again, that's where the fulfillment comes in. And we're all here to learn. We're all here to grow. And the more we can learn, the more we can grow, and we can see what peace is. When we can see the ugly parts in ourselves and love those pieces, then we can love everybody else around us. And we're all here to lift each other up and, to shift humanity.
Yeah, it's a concept of phrasing we've said over and over on the podcast. Many of us approach life as have, do, be. When I have this, I'll do that, and then I'll be X, happy or what have you.
Correct.
And we need to reverse it to be, do, have.
Absolutely.
Be the person, be happy, do what your happy self does. You'll have that happiness and what also comes about from it. The talk of my wife and I tell her, money is going to be a symptom of what we do. It's not the motivation behind what we do. It's not why we do what we do, but we are going to live in such an authentic way, and so lockstep with the mission and the vision that we have for our lives, that the money will become the symptom of our day-to-day actions. And that's what leads to that peace and that freedom that you so eloquently highlighted. Something that you said that I want to maybe pull the thread on a little bit. What does it mean when you say separating the soul from self?
Oh man, I'll go back to this. It's finding that moment in time. And this is why I think you're going to hear this word a lot in the world. And you probably do hear this word a lot. And that's called doing the work, right? Whether it's with a therapist, whether it's plant medicines, whether it's, journaling or whatever it is, there is a point in time, and it doesn't have to be anything grand. It doesn't have to be like this, I was beat, I was raped, I was this. It doesn't have to be that. It could simply be a moment in time where you felt disconnected. You didn't feel safe. And so what the mind wants more than anything is to feel safe, wants to feel loved. And when we don't feel loved and we don't feel safe and we don't learn from that experience, that then equals trauma. Now, if we learn from it, we're fine. I mean, think about it. You could walk outside today, someone could punch you in the face, and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? You're like, oh, I was in a rough area. Shouldn't maybe have been there. Well, you learn from that. But if you don't learn from that, then the body holds trauma to it. So there's a lot of places inside of our body where we hold trauma. And because of that trauma, we act, we react, we do things which holds us away from our peace. And how do you know if you have peace, right? That's often a question I hear from a lot of people. Well, what does peace mean? When you wake up in the morning and you open your eyes up, when there's nobody around, there's nothing going on. What is going on in your heart? How do you really feel? Do you feel chaotic? Do you feel rushed? Do you feel like, oh my gosh, I should have done this? Do you judge yourself? What is the things coming out? Or do you wake up and just breathe in and feel your body and feel peace? And then you go to a place of gratitude, being grateful for the moment that you woke up today, being grateful for the fact that you have a ceiling over your head or you have running water. That is peace, because you know that you are, safety also creates a lot of peace as well. So, and I think it's kind of what a lot of people are looking for, is that level of peace. But we equate it to peace means I have money, because if I have money, then I can pay my bills. If I have money, I can have the things I want. If I have money, I'll be loved. And like you just said, we're so much into I must be the thing. In order to be the thing, I have to do the thing. No, you don't. You have to be. Then you do. Then you have. It's a byproduct of the journey.
If iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another. But if you're a man and you're alone or listening to this, then who sharpens you? What's going on, guys? Ted Phaeton here, host of the Modern Man Podcast, also founder of the Noble Knights Mastermind Group. And I'm just out here encouraging you to find your circle. Maybe you're on a personal growth journey and nobody around you understands the new mentality that you're possessing. That's okay. You can find an online community that will pour into you, will navigate your goals and navigate your obstacles, share their experiences, resources, and more. Join the Noble Knights Mastermind Group and try us out for free to tap into a community of men helping each other scale up and reach their goals. Check out themodernmanpodcast.com. I feel as though for many, they would say it sounds easier than it actually is. There's a hesitation. There's a reluctance a reluctance to take that first step. There's a fear, if you would, to discovering what's the other side. What's on the other side of me doing away with this identity I've had for so long, Dalton. I want to be happy, yet I don't know how not to be. And there's a great song by NF who has a song called Happy.
Sure.
And if you're familiar with that song, Happy, I think that sums up the question, right? It's when you have an identity of this person, the thought of being happy is the thought of being someone completely different.
And that's okay.
I'd love to go there for
That's okay.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We have to, some of the greatest things I have done in my life is I've killed the old version of myself. It doesn't mean I don't love the old version of myself, but I killed the old version of myself. Look, the old version of myself was a guy that used to promote and was in nightclubs and chasing women and doing all these things for a long period of time. It was a guy that was running businesses. It was a guy that, you know, would fail many times over, but get back up. It was a guy that was always chasing things, and it was a guy that was drinking on the weekends and all those things. But there became a point in time where that version of me had to die. My identity is now tied into a man that doesn't drink, is tied into a man that is, you know, doing everything he can to help waken humanity. Like, my mission is different. When your mission overcomes your excuses, then life changes and shifts. And guess what? It is scary to kill the old version of yourself off. But the question I would say is, who are you without those stories? Who are you without the man or woman that's going to the bar? Who are you, the individual that says, I can't do something? No, you can do this. And is it easy? No, it's not. This is not something easy. I didn't come here to say, hey, I have the 5 easy steps for you to become successful. When you hear those things, run. Success, ease. I mean, look, you teach men to take care of their bodies, to take care of their spirit, to take care of where they're going. There's nothing easy sometimes about waking up in the morning and saying, you know what, I'm going to go to the gym. But I can tell you this. There's something I heard recently. It was this, is that a busy mind is a dangerous place, but a busy body creates a quiet mind. And a quiet mind creates, what did we just talk about before? Peace. Is that easy? No. But the question is not just exactly who to be without your stories, but if you kill the old version of yourself off today, if you stop buying into your excuses, if you decide that today is the day that I'm done being this version of myself that I don't love, I don't like, that's not creating peace, what is on the other side of that? Because if you see the vision of that and you slowly start taking steps, it doesn't have to be anything grand. You know, we're always trying to do these big things, but most of those things fell. So we do one or two things. And then what is the version of yourself waiting behind the door? Because I can tell you, if you continue to do what you're doing now, you've heard it before, you're going to continue to get the same exact experiences, the same exact friends, the same exact moments, the same exact Fridays, the same exact hangovers, the same exact drug addictions, and all of those things. But is that the man or woman that you want to be? And I can promise you, it's not. It's just that you have bought into where you ended up. But where you ended up is not where you need to end up. This is just part of your story. If you look back and you go, that was part of chapter 5. But what is chapter 6? And what is chapter 10? And where's the rest of your life lead you? Because you don't have to buy into your excuses, but your results will equal your life.
Oh man, yeah, you are hitting on so many great gems right now. I'm gonna have to hit the last 45 seconds on repeat. I encourage the audience to do the same. I would love to maybe pull back the curtain a little bit to some of the insights that I'm sure you've learned firsthand. You mentioned the old you to now someone who has starting not just companies, scaling companies, MIT 45, pono.ai. I'd love a quick insight into your journey from the man you mentioned drinking in the weekends to now a man who doesn't identify with drinking anymore. And I use those words specifically, identify with, because our identity makes it easy to make those choices. I'd love to know that journey and perhaps how plant medicine aided in that process.
Yeah, good. We can just jump right into that one. That makes a lot of sense. So one of the things is I always hear this when I go to shows or when I'm interviewed is, you know, you scaled this company, you did this thing. It's not true. And I want to be very clear about that. I have had an immense amount of, I have had just incredible amounts of teams and partners and coaches and books. And I mean, there's just so many things. I cannot take the credit for those. I've had a lot of stuff going on that got me to where I'm at. And sometimes I go, man, was it work? Was it luck? What was it? And I can only say is I kept saying yes. Like when it was hard, I said yes. When it was difficult, I said yes. And the other thing is I always have listened to something bigger than myself. I listen to the whispers. I listen to a lot of things that I think sometimes people think, well, that sounds a little bit crazy. But when about 2000 and I think it'd probably been 17, 18, my partner at the time asked me, do you want to be the CEO of the company? And I said, no, I don't want to be the CEO. That is a role that is not a role I want to take on. That is your role. And he says, well, I need you to take on that role. And so in January, I got a phone call about a training, a men's training. And I said, yes. And that men's training led me to Ohio, where I was thrown into water, where I was psychologically profiled and, basically a big military kind of camp in a way we'll call it. There was only one and that was it. But in that moment in time, I was around a bunch of men and I was listening to their stories and I was listening to their heartaches. And you know what? Majority of those stories came into where they would mess up, where they would ruin their lives was alcohol, all of them. And I thought, man, I thought alcohol. So I used to drink because I would tell people it would lower my energy. Think about that. As an individual, you want to lower your energy. And for me, I did because I hated hearing the conversations. How's your life? How's the weather? How's this? I wanted to get deep with people. But the problem was I was in a place where people didn't want to get deep. Why? Because in bars, what do we want to do? We want to avoid. We want to shut down. We want to shut off. We want to say, oh, you know what? I work for the weekend. If you have a life where you work for the weekend, where you work for the party, where you work to escape and numb out, then I'm going to use these words very clearly. Wake up. Wake up. This life is a gift. The present is a gift. Like you can do anything. You live in one of the most incredible times in history. You also live in one of the most comfortable times in history. So what did I have to do? Because of that comfort, I had to step into discomfort, the exact opposite. Eventually it ended me up in a lot of plant journeys where, I was able to find out the places inside of myself where I disconnected from my true self. I have been doing a lot of personal development trainings and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this. And I'm always like, what is next? What is next? And what I realized is this: I have been seeking God in so many different ways. And then I heard something very clearly, and that is, let God romance you. That's intense. What does that mean? Well, when we romance or when we court a woman, she's not really doing anything. I mean, she is, but she isn't. But like, we're going after her. We're the one pursuing. And a lot of times we think that we must pursue God through our actions. And we have to do all these things to be in good graces. And, and if we don't do those things, in no way will God or universe or source speak to me. But it's not this loud, explosion of words. It's a memory. When you sit for 15 minutes in quietness, it's the feel of the air. It's the place of gratitude. And so the more we stand in a place of gratitude, it lifts our attitude. And so for me, by doing a lot of these different experiences, and it's not just one thing. And I think that's what everybody's always looking for. They're always looking for the one thing that changed everything. But it's not. It's the pathway of saying yes. It's the falling down and getting back up. There's a hip hop artist called KRS-One, Knowledge Reigns Supreme, old school. And he says, when you get knocked down, you get back up. On my phone, it says relentless. Like, I don't forget where I came from. I lived out of my car. I was homeless at times in my life. I've failed more times than probably most human beings combined, I feel like. If you look at my library, it's not a library of success. It's a library with failure after notebook, after tears. But I just kept picking myself up. So I don't have the secret path for you to awaken. I can say if something calls to you, if you want to go to the jungle and drink ayahuasca, then do that. But do this. Once you do that, don't chase that. because it's a door to be open. It's not a place to live. And I find so many people that are in plant-based medicines, or if they're in something, whatever it is, they make it their religion instead of a door that was opened up to show them who they are. And I promise you, you are all great. You are all wonderful. You're all powerful. You just haven't yet tapped into that. And we all fall, and we have to have people around us. That's why it's important to have men's circles. It's important to have these things around us so they can pick us back up when we fall. Because once you think you've figured it all out, once you think that you've risen to the top, once you think that you're more evolved than anybody else, I promise you over and over, life has a way to humble you, whether it's your parents getting sick, whether it's something happening in business, whether it's a lawsuit, and you guys are all safe and fine and healthy, but life sometimes has a way to just show us what's important. And it's important to have men around us so that they can then help lift us up. So I don't know if that exactly answers your question, because I know that everyone wants some kind of secret. And the secret is to say yes, to do something that's uncomfortable. And if the life you're living right now is not one that would make you proud, hear me out on this, that would make you proud, that when you look back at your life and you say, I can't believe I did that. When you hear something soft inside yourself that says, hey, help the old woman out, or it says, hey, this person over here, they need food, or you listen, and you don't push things away, but you hear it. And the more that you listen to that voice, the louder it will get. And then the more you listen to that voice, I don't know what it is, and I can't explain it, but I believe personally that when we do good for each other, that it comes back. But don't do it from a place of it comes back. That's why I'm doing it, because I think that's where the gift gets ripped away. Do it because your heart truly tells you to do it. And we all know what that is. Nobody needs a book to hear about that. Because if we take care of our brothers and sisters, when you're in a place where you need that, then they'll take care of you. And we all rise together, man. None of us are on this journey alone. That's why we're here on this planet.
Yeah, no, amen to that, right? And it's all about the intentionality that leads to the outcome, the intentionality that leads to the response. And oftentimes when your intentions are pure, the responses and the outcomes will follow suit and reflect that. And you mentioned perfectly, in my gauge and my analysis or takeaway from what you depicted was something Dr. Joe Dispenza breaks down in this book of the moment where people decide to change their mind. The one of the two moments is where life does it for you, gives you no choice. Your back's against the wall and you have to change your ways. But then there's others who have the wisdom to see the trajectory in which they're going and change direction before hitting that wall. And it sounds like you being surrounded by men identifying that one thing that took them all out, alcohol. And you were wise enough to think to yourself, well, what makes me any different? I'm not going to think I'm special and will be immune to the same thing that took them out. So let me get ahead of this and solve the problem before it becomes a problem.
Absolutely. Right? The other thing to jump into that just for 1 second that I want to mention, please. It wasn't just that. There's a device called Whoop, or there's a ring called Aura. And they were showing with a bunch of basketball players and football players, and they said, hey, listen, if your HRV levels are low, if your sleep levels are low, this is the number one thing that's going to tear you away from your goal, your vision, where you're going. And what was it? It was alcohol. What was it? It was weed. It was drugs. And so it made me think, okay, how bad do I really want something? I can say I want something, but how bad do I want it? And is it worth me waking up and all of a sudden drinking on, a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday, waking up and being hungover, and then the next day is me not getting great sleep? And there's something about quality sleep. There's something about being in a 65-degree room with being pitch black, and you're intentional about it. You talked about intention, and the one thing that I think a lot of people leave out about intention is that when we put an intention out there, we think it's a goal. So I'm going to put this intention out in the world, and we think, and this thing's going to come to me. But the one thing I think that we lose or we leave out of that is that we have a feeling that we're the ones always driving the ship, and we are. However, if you got here by accident, because we all did, none of us kind of really chose here, if you want to look at it from that standpoint, from your mom and dad, then at that point in time, there's something greater than you even can defy. So just because you don't hit the goal that you think that you're supposed to hit, Maybe you weren't supposed to. Maybe you're supposed to hit something actually different, but unless you were taken off your mark, you would never actually hit it before. So we also have to stay in the mystery of things, because as men, we really, truly want to define everything. We're going to get here by this point, and this is how it's going to be, and this is how we're going to do things, and there's not going to be anything that's going to get in my way.
Yeah.
Well,
my wife will tell you, I could.
when God makes plans, or when you make plans, God makes plans. That's one of my favorite sayings.
Yeah. and I've seen that replay in our lives over and over again, to the point where Jess and I look at each other and we look at, you know what, let's just let God plan it from now on, because quite frankly, it's turned out better than what we've tried. So it's just, you have to go through things you wouldn't typically want to go through in order to get those outcomes.
Absolutely.
Sorry if you defined it earlier. I don't know if I asked the question specifically, but what would you define spiritual capitalism as?
It's an intersection, it's an intersection between spirituality and capitalism. And my opinion is they belong together. They're not one without the other. You see, capitalism is one of the greatest things we have on the planet. And a lot of people will disagree with me. Now, I know that there's ways that large corporations and there's things that are definitely evil, you could say, about capitalism, but it's about the person that has a tool. No different than you can say a gun is bad. But if you're using it for getting food, or if you're using it to, I don't know, maybe do some target practice, or even protecting your family, that gun can be very good. And so capitalism gets a bad rep. But what I love about capitalism, more importantly, is that it gives people the ability to create their own freedom. There's nothing better than all of a sudden that you're making money, and then all of a sudden you're paying your team what they deserve and they're making money. And then you're creating something of impact that you love doing. You wake up every day loving what you're doing. Yes, it's full of challenges, but it's amazing. And so when you take the spirituality side of it, you're listening to something greater than yourself, because there are so many corners that we can cut behind the scenes. Nobody's watching. It's quiet. We can just do these things. Nobody will care, but you will know. And so it's guiding you to something bigger than yourself, because you heard me say this a while ago. Entrepreneurship has led me on the path of numbing out. It's led me on the path of spiritual development. It's led me on the path of personal development. It's led me on the path of things like having conversations like this with yourself, and a lot of things I would never, ever experience if I sat behind a desk and I just checked in and I left. I wouldn't be the man I am today. And I love the man I am today. And so I believe that spiritual capitalism and capitalism running a business is one of the greatest journeys that you can go on, because it will push you in ways that you will get to see just who you are and what you're capable of, and the impact you can make in your community. And so to me, it's just something that I love, man. I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with, but I love seeing people wake up, and I love seeing people being able to accomplish things they never thought they possibly could, and experience things they never thought they could. The gifts, the experience that I'm able to give to my mom and dad, to my family, to a little old lady across the street, to the people that are homeless, to helping with, 501c3s and a bunch of nonprofit. I couldn't do that if I wasn't blessed the way I've been blessed.
Yeah. And I don't know, man, Dalton, this has never happened before. I'm starting to get emotional just thinking about this next question and the way you said it, because I finally gotten to a point with the podcast and with my staff and my team of taking care of someone else and seeing them provide for their families based off of something I've created. And you mentioned that entrepreneur journey, that spiritual capitalism. And for those who do it right and they lean in and they create this beautiful thing that they have passion behind, not just for themselves, but the families that get to live off of the fruits of that labor, right? The employees that I'm sure work with you who get to support their families, go on vacation, buy Christmas gifts, all because of this vision that you had the trust to release into the world. And I say that because I'm letting my spiritual side show of, I wrote in my journal not too long ago about the inspiration for an idea and why you don't want to sit on it, because I'm sure God gave the idea of the Snuggie to a lot of people. I've heard so many people say, I've thought of the Snuggie, but God's not going to let his plan not come into fruition. So he's not going to give you that idea, right? Much like NASA has redundancies because they need success. God knows he's going to give that inspiration to you and to some others, But if you don't fulfill that, if you don't carry out on that spark, that fire, it still can come into this world, because if God wills it, it will. Speak to, as that challenge for entrepreneurs comes front and center, because a lot of us step into it unknowingly, right? And I say unknowingly, we step into entrepreneurship knowing we're becoming an entrepreneur, but we don't really know the weight we're about to lift, the challenges we're going to face, the things we're going to learn about ourselves. And as that grows, the systems and processes become overwhelming. So speak of the growth of not just a business or scaling the revenue to that next 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures. Speak of the growth of self as an entrepreneur, as a spiritual person, how you grow as your business grows.
That's a really beautiful question. Whew. You're always put into different rooms, you know? It's an interesting process. So a lot of times I've thought that I knew a lot of things, right? And the older that I get, which I'm not old by any means, but I just realized the less that I actually know. When I was younger, I'll look at it this way. On my journey of being an entrepreneur, I would get into rooms, and guess what I would do? I would try to sell all the time. I wasn't trying to be anybody's friend. I wasn't trying to connect with anybody. I was just simply trying to see what's in it for me. Yeah, I liked the people. They were great. But I was like, all right, let's put a deal together. Like, let's make it happen. Like this really aggressive kind of guy. And over time, in reaching certain levels of financial, liquidity and having a lot different experiences, not having to, like, we look at it from a place of like hierarchy of needs. We have food, shelter, which is really important. And then we start getting up to the top, which is self-actualization. And, there's a lot of things depending if you're looking at spiral dynamics or whatnot. But when I started getting higher on those levels, because of the things you have to put yourself into to be at those places, when I say the things, you have to have a different mindset to run something that is 100,000 a year versus $1 million a year, which is 5 million a year, which is what we're speaking to. But one of the greatest gifts that came from all of that is I simply can go now to conferences and rooms, and I sit there and I truly don't want anything from anybody except human connection. I want to hear about their stories. I want to hear about what they're doing. I want to hear about like things they're excited about or whatever. But as far as like, do I want something from them? Is my purpose to take? Is my purpose? No, my purpose is to give. My purpose is to see like, how can I assist you to get to where you want to be, which has led me on, where we're at right now in business with, what we were talking about earlier with us, which is Pono. Because of that, because I just wanted to help other people get to where they want to go. And that's a beautiful place to be. And so I question and think, what if instead, if I was to reverse the clock, and maybe this is to other people that are in those positions, what if instead of just asking what I could get, I just ask what I could give? And if I had to start all over again, because people won't remember you just for your name, but they'll remember what you did for them. But more importantly, they're going to remember how you made them feel. And most people don't have a lot of people really caring about them, like not really caring about them. How's their friends? How's their family? Like, but okay, that's great. That's very surface level. But one of the things one of my mentors will ask me often, and that's, how's your heart? How's your heart doing? How are you doing? None, because everybody says I'm fine, I'm this, but when you can give that gift of true presence, which is one I struggle with, you ask my partner, she'll tell you all the time. But when you can really give that gift of true presence and being aware and being totally with that person, focus deeply in what they're saying, and they get to be heard and seen for the first time, they will never forget you. And I wonder if I would have just led that way instead of trying to always figure out how to get something from somebody.
Yeah. And then, man, it's a hard lesson to learn, because we had the mindset so focused is towards, okay, growth and run the business, instead of when you're fully tapped into really your authentic business and your authentic self. I'm never going to forget the networking event that I went to, where I did not try to sell anything. I just spoke about what I did and who I am, what I offer. This is what I give to the world. And I left with 3 leads, one that became a client, because I simply just said what I offer. And I didn't have a business card. I never said, hey, take my number. It was the opposite. Someone said, hey man, I might need you. Can I get your number? They asked for it because they identified they needed what I was offering, and it lined up. But if I went in there trying to give it to everybody, I probably would not have spent the 5 extra minutes with these 3 individuals that ended up finding out what I do. Speaking to the growth and the business side of things, as we have a few minutes left in the podcast, I know we mentioned your company's MIT45, pono.ai, with the focus on pono.ai. And I wanted to highlight, I pull research studies into the show at times. And this was actually a study titled The Solo Revolution, a theory of AI-enabled individual entrepreneurship, right? And this was presented to the AI-enabled individual entrepreneurship theory, where it says the framework explains how AI technologies transform individual entrepreneurial capabilities through skill augmentation, capital structure transformation, risk profile modification, and more. With pono.ai and the work you do with entrepreneurs, I'd love for you to highlight the amazing work that AI can add to someone who is probably listening to this podcast thinking to themselves, Dalton, man, I'm doing this all on my own. I can only do so much.
Yeah.
Speak to your expertise in that realm really quick while we have a few more minutes.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give the audience something besides that at this moment in time. You use the word authenticity, and we use the word about going into conferences and networking and doing this, right? The number one currency that you're going to have in the next 10, 15, 20 years is going to be authenticity. Authenticity. I promise you. Look it up. Like, this is going to be the number one skill. Why? Because you're not going to trust anything online. There's going to be tons of deep fakes, voices, video, you name it. So yes, maybe things will be on the blockchain and so forth, but people are going to, mark my words on this, they're going to thrive and they're going to desire human connection over anything digital. I promise you this is coming. Robots are going to be taking over. There's a lot of stuff coming. And so we built Pono AI, which means balance, which means righteousness. And it's so that we could get people out of the machine. But we had to first get them in the machine to get them out of the machine. So our first step is getting people in and saying, okay, listen, you have a dream, you have a vision. And the problem is when you have a dream and a vision, the first thing that happens is everyone's going to ChatGPT. They're going to all these different AI models and they're asking a bunch of questions. That's great. But majority of that is non-actionable. What do you do with it? Where does it go? There's a lot of problems there. And we get ourselves even more confused. And so what we did is we said, okay, we're going to build a platform where you can tell us exactly what you're doing, how you're doing it, what your vision is, do you have an exit strategy, and so forth. From that point, we're going to build out what we call a brand brain. That brand brain becomes now your AI operating system for your business. You give us your 3-month, your 6-month, your 12-month goals. We give you an exact roadmap. We break it out exactly on how to do it. You work with AI to accomplish that. You assign your team to the tasks. And then what you're able to do in a very short period of time is you're able to cut down 10, 15, 20 hours a week of your work. Now, why is that important? Because automation is coming. So what you need to do in those 10, 15, 20 hours that you are not going to be working, that doesn't mean work more. That means do what one of my mentors taught me years ago. That means go listen. That means go get quiet. That means go do something that has not anything to do with your work. Be with your family, your friends, your culture, your community, your loved ones. Be there because it's going to be really important. Then come back to Pono AI and we're going to help you accomplish even more. But you're going to be able to accomplish a lot more efficiently as far as we'll help you create your documents, your processes, your procedures, your SOPs, everything you're going to need to operate your business and some. Because I wanted a way so people kept telling me, hey, I have this idea, this concept, this business I want to do. How do I do it? I would tell them how to do it, but it just wasn't enough. And they couldn't ask enough questions. And so we built a platform that allows you to ask questions and it solely focuses on your business. It doesn't, the problem we're having right now is there's so much indecision. There's so much fatigue that way. People get an idea, they go to YouTube, they go to Facebook, they go to their friends, they go to their family, they go wherever. But what they don't do is they don't take action. And the more that we don't take action, the further away we are from our goal. And so you have to kill off this version of trying to do a billion different things, find the one thing that calls to your soul and focus there. And we'll help you accomplish that. This is something I believe that we can do. I've spent 3 years of my life investing over $1 million into this, wanting to quit every single day because I didn't know how to program or what to do, hired on massive teams to be able to bring this to the world. And I promise you, Pono, the team, myself, we'll do everything we can to get you out of confusion. We'll do everything we can to get you so that you are focused on your mission, so that you accomplish the things that you are meant here to do. And by the way, it wasn't working. It was doing a lot more in the world than being behind a computer.
Amen to that. No, I love that. And so many of us think that we're getting things done, especially the men listening to this podcast. Wake up, we have a plan, especially me. I'm the one who operates it. Are you time blocking? Do you have your calendar optimized? I do schedule my breaks. I schedule my rest time. I schedule my TED time. But for anyone who is just chasing the to-do list, who's chasing those dopamine hits of checking off the next item, the chaos never allows for quiet. And because we never allow for quiet, there's no reflection, there's no checking back with self, or even, to your point, listening and learning. And the unfortunate thing is, so many of us avoid that because the silence is too loud, because we're afraid of our thoughts. And hopefully folks can lean in, find that extra time to reconnect with self, reconnect and learn from their true direction in life, and hone in on that and utilize the extra time that pono.ai and these systems and processes can provide. I do want to make sure before we wrap up that our audience can find you, Dalton, can follow you, can get in touch with you and learn more about Pono.ai, MIT45, the work that you do. So what are some of the best links, resources for folks to connect with?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Obviously, if they're interested in Pono, it's pono.ai. But as far as myself personally, you're just going to find me on any of your social media channels, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, just Dalton Locke. And that's the easiest way to find me.
Awesome. I'll have those links in the show notes below. Last question is usually the heaviest, which is why I save it for last.
Let's go.
Dalton, what is something that's happened to you or something that you've seen that shapes the way you view the world as a man?
Oh, man, that's a good one. 2016, the FDA, DEA, came in and they said that Kratom was going to be a Schedule 1. Lost everything overnight for the most part, took our whole entire company, lit it on fire. And when I say lit it on fire, I mean $1 million worth of product on fire. End up in the hospital with blood clots. After that, lost everything again. And end up in over in Maui with over in Oahu with my family. My mom had said, hey, we're going to be doing our retirement. I want you to be there. So I had to borrow the money from her, which was very humbling, and went over there. And I was in Bellows Base because she was retired civilian from the Air Force. And I was on the beach and just crying because I just didn't know what to do. I was just lost. And everything I kept touching, nothing would work. Everything fell apart over and over. And I was meditating about 5:30 in the morning. And as I was meditating, I heard a voice. And this wasn't wasn't an outside voice. It was an inner voice. And I saw an image about a book called Read the Science of Getting Rich. And this guy, for some reason, about a year or 2 years ago, had said on a post that I always read The Science of Getting Rich. And I had heard this voice like, you need to read this. So then I went into the public domain on YouTube because, well, there's no Amazon at the time that quickly. And I started listening to The Science of Getting Rich. And for some reason, that book led me back to where I am now. So went from losing everything, not knowing what I was going to do, to building a company that, did close to $100 million last year. So, and again, that wasn't on my own. There was a lot of different people, but I wanted to give up. I wanted to give up. I was semi-suicidal. Like I just wanted to say, fuck it. I'm so done, which I know so many of your listeners, I'm sure, have been there many times in their life, but I can just say that who are you on the other side of that? Who are you on the other side of your give up? Because I can promise you the person that's there, the person I stand as today is not that same man as I stood years ago. So, and that wasn't that long ago, it's so many things can change in just such a fraction of time if we are willing to walk that walk.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Visionary entrepreneur who seamlessly integrates spirituality, artificial intelligence, and business growth and business innovation, coming out of Salt Lake City. Dalton Locke on the podcast. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation and can't wait to go deep another time.
No, my pleasure. We might have to have you back on for another one for anything that we might have missed. Speaking of which, I want to share a couple quick notes. I ended up having to stop taking notes halfway through because I was just so infatuated by the conversation. But titles don't define you, the soul does. So many of us are looking for that next title. They're looking for the next position to get the confidence or to be happy with the increased finances that come with that. But that's chasing a bottomless pit. You're never going to get satisfied with those titles. The soul must be satisfied in order for the peace to come, because our heart knows. Something else Dalton said, our heart knows the direction. Drugs, money, power don't change the man, but it amplifies what's already within them. Money being one of those main things, the alcohol being another thing that amplifies what's within you, doesn't necessarily change you. Separating the soul from self, understanding, has a moment like that happened to you? Are you holding on to trauma in the body? Are you living with a chaotic mind? And a busy mind does not give you peace, but a busy body can give peace of mind. I kept saying yes when asking Dalton how he transitioned from where he was to getting where he is now. He said yes, but a discerning yes, I will say, is very important as well. Working for the weekend. I loved it when Dalton said clearly, specifically, and directly, wake up. I will echo that one more time. Wake up. And of course, live a life that makes you proud. If you're listening to this, one of the 14 to 16% of women, or if you're a man listening to this, live a life that makes you proud. When you look in the mirror, when you look back at how you showed up, are you proud of who you are and who you were? And if not, understand, you could leave the past. You could still love your old self, but kill that old self to become the new self. And if you're looking for someone to help you build systems, processes, automations with AI, pono.ai is a great resource to use. Reach out to Dalton, his team, and of course, continue to learn and grow. Also, I'm going to ask that you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this episode with somebody else you know can get value from it as well. And the best compliment you can give us here on the show is a rating. Leave us a rating. Let us know what you like. I want an honest rating. Let us know what you don't like. This is the only way we improve and get better for you. And it's great for the algorithm, so we can keep providing these amazing interviews for you each and every single week. With that being said, we'll catch you guys next time. And as we always say at the end of the episode, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without first the pain. Let's grow.